Taking only my valuables, I dash out of the house, running down the busy streets towards the train station. I run up the stairs of the station. At the platform, I wait for the train to my hometown as I try to suppress my anxiety. I look around nervously to see if anyone is following me, but I don't even know what I'm running from. I don't know why I've had to give up on the honeymoon I was looking forward to and have ended up being forced to run. But I'm trying to flee from this town as I trusted my husband telling me to run. My name is Megan. I'm an office worker who just turned 30. Despite always feeling like a newcomer, I found myself in a position to teach others before I knew it, leading a busy life. I have a fiancé, Bob, and we're getting married next year. Bob is my colleague at work and 3 years younger. He's so mature and reliable that my colleagues often tease me, saying, "We can't tell who's older." He's a man who commands trust from superiors and subordinates alike, handles household chores flawlessly, and I think he's an ideal partner for marriage. Except for one thing. One weekend, we needed to visit my in-laws' house together. As we open the door to the living room, 2 women are relaxing, sipping tea. "Welcome home, Bob." "Welcome back, Bobby." Ignoring me completely, the women greet him with sparkling smiles and Bob sighs.
Why's Catherine here again?
"Well, Catherine is like a daughter to us, right?"
"Right, Mom? Oh, if I become Bobby's wife, I'll really be your daughter."
"Oh, how wonderful." Bob sighs again as my mother-in-law and Catherine start giggling and making a fuss. I was filled with the urge to go home right then and there. Catherine is a neighbor of my in-laws and Bob's childhood friend. They've been close since they were babies, up until high school. Catherine has beautiful eyes and a slender figure, and with her expertise in acting cute, she's the type of girl that men can't leave alone. For some reason, she's fixated on Bob. And it started right after Bob told his parents about our engagement. She's been aggressively texting Bob, inviting him out for drinks, and whispering things like, "I'll feel sad if you get married," and "Didn't you propose to me when we were little?" I felt uneasy at Catherine's assertiveness and asked Bob if he was interested in his cute childhood friend. To that, he made a disgusted face.
"She juggled 5 guys at once in the soccer team in high school. In college, she seemed to only date men who had girlfriends or wives. I'm too scared to marry a woman with no sense of chastity like that."
Well, you're right. I was taken aback by Catherine's lack of fidelity, but relieved to know that Bob was not swayed by her. But my mother-in-law is on Catherine's side. She's trying to push me out by flaunting her closeness with Catherine. Apparently, she doesn't like me because I'm older than her son, taller, and work too hard for a woman. She seems to be unaware of Catherine's wildness and thinks that Catherine, who at first glance appears elegant and obedient, would be easy to handle and boast about as a daughter-in-law. Because of those two, we faced the worst possible experience at our wedding a month later. Unbelievably, Catherine, who wasn't even invited, showed up at the reception. And she wore a pure white dress, which of course only the bride is supposed to wear. Of course, it wasn't as lavish as a bridal gown, but the fact that it was white didn't change. And she was the center of attention in the venue in many ways. What was even scarier was that during the reception, she had the audacity to sit at the family table where my mother-in-law was. During our slideshow, and even during our friends' speeches, I couldn't help but be bothered by her chatting it up with my mother-in-law. When they approached our table at one point, my husband argued with them, as he tried to hold back his anger.
"Catherine, you weren't invited, and you're wearing a white dress. And sitting at the family table, what the heck are you thinking? What are you doing, Mom?"
"But it's my childhood friend's wedding. I can't not celebrate it, and white matches my skin the best."
"Oh, I agree. The white dress looks really good on your fair skin. You look the best in this venue. I requested the seat because you forgot to prepare it. Don't worry, I'm sharing the meal with her." Ugh. My husband, unable to vent his frustration, looked down in despair. Looking at my father-in-law, who was at the family table,
he had an apologetic look on his face. Although my father-in-law is a decent man, he's weak-willed and probably got bulldozed over by his wife. We've been eagerly preparing and looking forward to this day for nearly a year. It's so frustrating I feel like crying, but if I cry now, it will only please these two. I'm not going to show them my tears. When I raised my face and smiled at Catherine, I saw the corners of her eyes twitch. Coming to celebrate even though you weren't invited? Catherine, you're really thoughtful of your friends, aren't you? Huh? Catherine grimaced. And it's so nice of you to share half your meal. Please do share half of your favorite filet mignon as well. Oh, my mother-in-law's eyes wandered. Oh, it's almost time for me to change outfits, so please step back. I'm sorry I'm so busy. I mean, I am the main event after all. With that said, and showing a calm smile, the attendant who was with me said, Can we please let other people take pictures with the newlyweds, please? And kindly moved them out of our way. I was grateful for her excellent work. Catherine glared at me for a moment with demonic eyes, but then immediately plastered on a cutesy, idol-like smile and left. I'm sorry I'm not the weak woman who would cry and wail. Thanks to the excellent attendant and the staff, the reception turned out all right. I was exhausted, but aside from those two, I received heartfelt blessings from everyone else and was able to fully appreciate the happiness. We didn't start living together right after our marriage. Since job transfers are announced at the end of the fiscal year, we thought it would be safer to find a new home afterwards. So, for our honeymoon trip planned 2 weeks after the wedding, we each planned to leave from our own homes and meet up at the airport. Once we start living together, there'll be fewer chances for rendezvous, so I thought it'd be fun to do something that feels like we're still dating. The destination for our honeymoon is Italy. My mind was filled with the allure of Italy, especially it being my first overseas trip. I was thrilled and excited each day leading up to it. However, my excitement was about to be ruined by the two. On the day of the honeymoon, while I was nervously opening and closing the suitcase, checking that I hadn't forgotten anything, I got a call from my husband. Hey, what's up? We're meeting up at 1 p.m., right? I'm sorry. Huh? Contrary to my easygoing self, my husband screams in a desperate voice. We have to cancel the honeymoon. Please don't come to the meetup spot. What? Listen, don't leave the apartment. No, actually, leave right now and go back to your parents' home, please. Wait a minute, what's going on? I'm sorry, I'll explain later. Just leave right now. Stunned, I stare at the phone after being abruptly disconnected. I have no idea what's going on, but my good mood has suddenly gone down the drain after hearing my husband being frantic. Could he possibly be involved in some sort of crime? The mere thought sends chills down my spine. With my legs about to buckle from all the anxiety, I force myself to move and decide to return to my parents' home as per my husband's instructions. Naturally, my parents are in a panic. Their daughter, who was supposed to be going on her honeymoon, has come home with a pale face. Seeing the disgraceful behavior of my mother-in-law at our wedding, they were even more worried. Even if I wanted to explain the situation, I too was at a loss because I didn't know why I was there. Then I got a call from an unknown number. I sensed something was not right. It was the police. Fearing that I was indeed involved in a crime, I pressed the answer button with bated breath. The police officer, with a much softer voice than I expected, explained why he had called. We got a call about a couple of women screaming and banging on your apartment door. They seemed quite agitated, so we took them into custody. The older woman claims to be your mother. What? Wait, me? Because I had put the call on speakerphone, my mother, who was listening next to me, let out a bewildered shout. Even the police officer on the other end, hearing my mother's voice, seemed taken aback with a surprised, "Huh?" I was dumbfounded for a moment, but I soon realized who the older woman was. It was my mother-in-law, and I assume Catherine is with her too. I don't know why they came to my house on the day of our honeymoon, but I'm sure they're the reason my husband was panicking. Our flight was now hours ago. Because of these people, our honeymoon is gone. No Venice, no pizza, no pasta, no tiramisu, no maritozzo, all of which I was looking forward to. This is awful, just awful.
I'm never forgiving them.
My mother is sitting right next to me. Those people are complete strangers, I stated firmly to the police officer.
Hold on, Megan, it's me.
I could hear my mother-in-law screaming from the other end of the phone, but the officer must have sensed something as he smoothly ended the call with,
"Thank you for your cooperation."
I suspect that my mother-in-law and the others came to my apartment with the intention of causing me harm. How crazy is it that they would claim to be my mother when they're in trouble? Several hours passed. My husband showed up at my parents' house late into the night. As I suspected, the ones who were held by the police were my mother-in-law and Catherine. Somehow, they found out that we were meeting at the airport, and they had planned to stop me from going to Italy. Then, Catherine planned to run up to my husband, waiting at the airport, and lie to him, saying,
"Your wife has run off with another man,"
planning to comfort my distraught husband, and maybe even take my place on our honeymoon and deepen their relationship. I wonder if they really thought they could easily take my place right before departure. It's not like this lie wouldn't be exposed when we returned from our honeymoon. What short-sighted thinking, I thought. But their dreadful plan didn't end there. After stopping me, they intended to take me to a man my mother-in-law had chosen. To my mother-in-law's 50-year-old unemployed brother. For that purpose, they had Catherine's cousins waiting in a car, which gave me chills. If this plan went through with my mother-in-law's brother and me, and my husband and Catherine, my mother-in-law thought we probably wouldn't be able to stay as a couple. It was a terrifying plan. How my husband found out about this terrifying plan was thanks to my father-in-law. He happened to hear my mother-in-law and the others making plans and secretly contacted my husband. My husband was planning to do a little work before heading to the airport, so when my father-in-law called, he was still at work. He immediately called me in a panic. By the time he delegated his work to a colleague and arrived at my apartment, my mother-in-law and the others had apparently already been taken away. After that, he went to the police with my father-in-law, sorted out various things, and finally managed to get here. My husband apologized profusely for the actions of my mother-in-law and the others, and for our cancelled honeymoon. He did everything he possibly could, and seeing how worn out he had become in just one day, I couldn't bring myself to blame him. But I will never forgive my mother-in-law and Catherine. I will never forgive them no matter what. From that day on, I switched from defense to offense. First, I claimed for the cost of repairs to my apartment door that they had destroyed, various fees to the management company, and the cancellation fees for the honeymoon. Apparently, they were enraged, thinking I was playing hooky and kicked the door, and even hit it with a nearby fire extinguisher. The door was a new high-end one that I had just replaced, so the repair cost was high. I also had splurged on the honeymoon, so everything in total came close to $20,000. Of course, they resisted.
"No, I'm not the one to blame. It's Bob who won't admit he loves me."
All I wanted was your happiness, Bob. Huh? I get it.
"Bob, you really are kind."
If you're not willing to pay, we're going to court.
Court?
If we go to court, we'll also pursue the fact that you tried to kidnap my wife. The costs and the amount claimed are likely to increase. At the mention of the word court, the mother-in-law began to tremble, and Catherine began to sob.
"But Bob, you forgive me, right? I'm your precious girl, aren't I?"
I'll never forgive you.
Eek!
Catherine let out a small shriek at the cold glare of my husband.
"But I love you so much, it's cruel. You do love me too, don't you, Bob?"
There's no way I could love a woman who casually dates 5 guys at once or goes out with a married man. What? 5 guys? The mother-in-law looks at Catherine in shock. I also back up my husband. You say you love Bob, but you only started saying that after he and I got engaged, right? Even if you're not interested in a man, you suddenly want him when he's someone else's. The mother-in-law glares at Catherine. She must have hit a nerve. Catherine's eyes dart around in panic. Then she points at my mother-in-law and shouts,
You're the main culprit. She tried to use me because she didn't like her daughter-in-law.
Oh my, you're trying to pin the blame on me? Bob, this woman led me astray. I tried to stop this terrible thing.
What?
The two began to argue fiercely, as if they're about to grapple with each other. The two of them, who had been so friendly, have suddenly broke up. What a fragile friendship. In the end, Catherine's parents and the father-in-law intervened, and it was decided to split the claim amount exactly in half. Catherine's parents, who had not noticed their daughter's disgraceful behavior at all, were very apologetic. We brought in a lawyer and filed a restraining order for Catherine and the mother-in-law. Of course, the mother-in-law refused in tears, but their plan was so malicious, even though it was foiled. Neither I nor my husband intended to forgive them. 3 years later, we were living peacefully with our newborn child when a man visited our home. The man, who was stylishly dressed in an expensive suit, introduced himself as Catherine's fiancé.
I went back to Catherine's parents' house to say hello, and I happened to meet one of her classmates who told me,
Wasn't she supposed to steal Bob?
Oh. My husband, hearing Catherine's name for the first time in a long time, face palms. The classmate Catherine and her fiancé met must have attended our wedding and seen Catherine's disgrace.
I thought it was a joke, but I was concerned about Catherine's pale face. I'm sorry, but I had it investigated. You and Catherine were childhood friends, but you're not dating now, are you? Of course not. We've never even dated.
When my husband emphatically said this, the fiancé looked relieved.
But she might be dating someone other than me. What? The Catherine I know is the type who dates a different guy every day of the week. What? Even though she wasn't invited to our wedding, she showed up wearing a white dress and brazenly sat at the family table. No way. I think if you're going to investigate, you should widen the scope, not just me. All right.
Catherine's fiancé responded in a faint voice, then staggered away from our house. It seemed they really did carry out an investigation afterward, and Catherine's history with men embarrassingly came to light. It turns out Catherine's fiancé was the son of a somewhat prominent CEO, and the entire family was furious at Catherine, who had falsely portrayed herself as a chaste woman. Apparently, she had been dating several men while engaged, and not only was the engagement called off, but she's also apparently being sued for damages. If she hadn't let her desire to steal someone else's man get in the way of our wedding, she might have made it to a life of luxury without anyone finding out. Well, her true nature would have been exposed eventually. But this is way too much poetic justice. My mother-in-law seems to be fretting over not being able to meet her first grandchild. She's apparently watching with bated breath as my father-in-law cheerfully brings baby supplies over to our house. There have been several instances where baby clothes were sent via my father-in-law, but I sent them back without even looking at them. Catherine was dumped by her fiancé and drowning in debt, and my mother-in-law was unable to see her beloved son and grandchild. Right now, them being neighbors, they seem to get in a catfight every time they see each other. The neighbors who have to witness these ugly disputes are certainly not enjoying it.
Hey Megan, how about we visit the Miami Seaquarium on the second day, and on the third day, let's head to Key West. I heard there's the Overseas Highway.
Sounds beautiful. I also want to eat seafood at a Cuban restaurant.
I want to swim with the fishies.
This year, as our son turns 3, we're planning to take the honeymoon we never got to have. Our destination is Florida. The main goal is to show our son dolphins. Of course, we also plan on trying all the food specialties like Cuban food. We haven't given up on Italy, which we had to put off because our son is still too young. It may be far off in the future, but if it's with my husband, we can make it happen. All because I feel so content and happy every day.
Ever since Mom passed away, my mother-in-law Olivia and sister-in-law Zoe keep barging in every time I'm alone at home. How can you not entertain us when we've gone out of our way to visit? Unbelievable. We'll get steaks again, so you're paying, all right? Zoe is laughing alongside her. I've been living through these hellish days for 2 years now. Now, my son and daughter have moved out to attend university in the city. Then one day, with just my husband and me at home, Matthew dropped a bombshell. Next week, my parents and sister's family are moving in, so clear out your room. And to top it off, Matthew says I'm in the way and should leave. The house was originally my family home, and now he's telling me to leave? Unforgivable. I decided without hesitation to take certain steps. Then I'll just clear out the house. Matthew smirked maliciously when I said that. Oblivious Matthew left for a business trip. I immediately made the necessary calls for the plans I had in place. Before Matthew returned, I had everything arranged and left the house. I can imagine Matthew's shocked face when he comes back. My name is Mia, a 48-year-old housewife, living in my family home since getting married. After graduating high school, I went to college in Boston and worked there, spending my entire single life in Boston. However, on a rare visit back to the countryside, I ended up attending a local revitalization party. I had no intention of returning to the countryside, but I was forcibly dragged there by the people around me. I, being someone who can't say no when asked, reluctantly went. The local men, not often lucky in love, were desperate. Everywhere I looked, their eyes were gleaming with eagerness. Overwhelmed, I decided just to wait it out. That's when I noticed a man sitting quietly beside me. My future husband, Matthew. I was bored alone, so I shared some food with him. In return, as a thank you, he brought food to me, saying, I was gradually drawn to Matthew, a man of few words, but earnest. After all, I had no boyfriend back in Boston, nor was I in a particularly responsible position at work. Around that time, Dad had passed away, and with no siblings, Mom was living alone in the family home. Feeling tired of the city life, I started to think it wouldn't be so bad to marry and settle down in my hometown. So I married Matthew, and we began our life in my family home. Since my sister-in-law Zoe and her husband were living in the in-laws' house, Matthew was more than happy to live with my mom. We were blessed with 2 children, a son and a daughter, and our marriage seemed to be going well. However, after Mom passed away and the kids moved out to become independent, I faced a terrible ordeal. Matthew, always quiet, remained mostly silent even after marriage. He didn't involve himself much in parenting. He might be called a calm type of husband. As an only child, I was close to Mom and consulted her about everything. So I think I managed to raise my children the way I wanted with her help. But everything changed right after Mom died. Mom loved taking care of the family and lost her spirit quickly after the kids left for college in the city. Then she passed away not long after. I thought Matthew and I would spend our time together peacefully, but after Mom's death, Matthew changed, as if he became a different person. The once quiet Matthew started calling me you in a disrespectful way and became rude. Lay about. If you've got time, make some coffee, he'd say, lounging in the living room, bossing me around. He never used to lie down outside the bedroom, so what's happened to him? Maybe he was being considerate to my mom when she was alive. But now he's turned arrogant. Unlike anything I've seen, even as his wife. Maybe he's relaxing now that he no longer has to mind Mom. But such a drastic change is shocking to me. Our children, who occasionally come home, are astonished at Matthew's transformation. Moreover, even when the kids are home, Matthew sticks to the TV, refusing to leave the living room. If the kids try to change the channel, get out of the way, go somewhere else, he snaps. This really upsets them. Since Mom and I raised them, They feel uncomfortable with Dad, Matthew, dominating the place. So the children, initially returning on long weekends, now come only during the year-end holidays. No matter the absence of in-laws, this attitude is too much. Unable to bear it anymore, I tried to subtly bring up Matthew's behavior. Hey, you've been acting different lately. What's going on?
What's changed?
He retorted. Since Mom passed away, maybe. You used to be so calm. But now you seem irritable. Matthew glared and replied in a harsh tone.
What are you talking about? I was just being considerate to your mom. But now that she's gone, I'm the head of this house. It's only natural for me to get angry if I don't like something.
I was terrified, seeing this frightening sight of Matthew for the first time. It seemed that being considerate to Mom had been a stress for him, but I never imagined he would change this much. Since then, I've been walking on eggshells around Matthew, and the troubles that have befallen me since Mom's death didn't stop there. I worked part-time until 3 p.m., then returned home to do household chores, which has become my routine. When Mom was alive, we used to enjoy tea time together at this hour, but now it's become a depressing time. When I get home, Olivia and Zoe are waiting at the entrance.
Ah, Mia, you're late. We've been waiting in the cold for 40 minutes,
Olivia complained.
That's right, Mia. We heard you finished work at 3 p.m., so we timed our visit accordingly. Why are you so late?
Zoe added. Yes, these two started coming to our house every day at this time, knowing my part-time job ends at 3 p.m. In the in-laws' house, the in-laws and Zoe's family live together. Like us, Zoe's husband moved into her family home. Zoe, who has no children and hasn't worked for a long time, always sticks to Olivia. I used to think Olivia and Zoe were kind people when Mom was alive, but like Matthew, they started being brazen with me as soon as Mom passed away. I'm sorry, I was shopping on my way back, I said. Fearing their complaints, if I showed any displeasure, I could only apologize and let them in. Once inside, I have to change and put away the shopping first. But without waiting, Olivia starts nagging.
You have your husband's mom and sister visiting, and you don't even care for us. Unbelievable. We'll get steaks again, so you're paying, right?
Zoe laughs along with her. Even though it's nearly 4 p.m., they insist on ordering steaks for delivery, and I always end up paying. I've been living through these hellish days for 2 years now. Of course, I had talked to Matthew about it, but he never took my side.
Mom and your sister think they're being considerate, believing you're lonely after losing your mom. Complaining would be bad karma.
But they always eat steaks, and I'm always the one paying. It's causing a monthly deficit.
Just manage your finances better. It's not enough. Find a part-time job that pays more. You always cared for your own parents, but seemed cold to my family.
His words left me speechless. I don't want to quit my current part-time job because the people are nice. And it's not like I've neglected the in-laws' house. I've always shown up for family gatherings and took things over for Thanksgiving. Olivia and Zoe used to be so kind whenever I visited. Why did they change so suddenly after Mom died? I was lost on what to do next, and my stress kept building. During these days of suffering, something shocking happened. One night, Matthew came home from work and announced something unbelievable.
Next week, my parents and sister's family are moving in, so clear out your room.
What? Why so sudden? I was panicked by the abrupt news.
It's exactly as I said. Everyone's moving in this Saturday, so hurry up.
Saturday was only 3 days away. Matthew had decided the significant matter without consulting me, just discussing it with his family. Wait, you can't just decide that. This house originally belongs to my family.
Shut up. Regardless of its origins, I'm the head of this house now. I decide everything. No complaints.
His harsh words stunned me, and I dropped the plate I was washing. It shattered on the floor.
Clumsy idiot. That's why I've grown tired of being with you.
What do you mean by that? His words piqued my interest, and he replied with a sneer.
I'll be clear. Mom and my sister like this house and want to live here, but they hate you. I also don't like being with you, so you're in the way and should leave.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah, and like I said, clear out your stuff. I'll be on a business trip for the next 3 days, so finish it before I return.
Furious at Matthew's cruel treatment, I made up my mind to take certain steps. Then I'll clear out the house. Matthew smirked maliciously at my response.
Oh, I thought you'd throw a bigger fit. Surprisingly obedient.
He seemed pleased, thinking everything was going his way, unaware that he'd regret his actions in just 3 days. The next day, oblivious Matthew left for his business trip. I immediately called to initiate the planned procedures. Before Matthew's return, I finished all the arrangements and left the house. I could picture Matthew's shocked face when he comes back. I headed to my daughter Madison's apartment in Boston, where she lives alone. I had contacted her 3 nights before.
I've been waiting for you, Mom. Did you finish the procedures?
Yes, everything's perfect. Sorry for suddenly imposing on you like this.
It's okay, but Dad's awful, isn't he? Kicking you out so suddenly?
Yes, but I made sure to teach Dad a lesson before coming here. He's in for a surprise. I said, laughing with Madison. There was a reason I came to Madison's place. Late that night, as expected, Matthew called.
What's this about? There's nothing left in the house. Where are the furniture and appliances?
Oh, you told me to clear out all your stuff, you said.
I meant for you to clear out the stuff in your room. I never said to clear out everything in the house.
Indeed.
Clear out your room,
Matthew initially said, but after telling me to leave,
clear out all your stuff,
he said. You wanted me out, right? So I disposed of all my furniture and appliances that I inherited from Mom. Now your family can move in without any worries. The procedures I undertook in these 3 days began with having the recycling company pick up the furniture and appliances I've been using. I had movers take out everything that belonged to the children, and what I still needed to Madison's apartment. I felt bad for inconveniencing Madison, but she was eager to get back at Matthew and helped me. After a long silence, Matthew spoke in a troubled voice.
Actually, the part about my parents' and sister's family moving in was a lie. Both Mom and my sister are likely to get divorced.
Oh, I see. So they're planning to take refuge with you. I replied as if I already knew.
What? Aren't you surprised? Both might get divorced.
Well, I knew that.
Huh?
Matthew sounded dumbfounded. I had already contacted my father-in-law, Robert, and my sister-in-law's husband, Richard, in these 3 days, so I was fully aware of the current situation of the in-laws. Actually, Richard is originally from Boston. He got interested in a community revitalization event in our area and decided to participate. There, he caught Zoe's eye, who pursued him one-sidedly, and even her mom, Olivia, pressured him into marriage. Then, at Olivia and Zoe's request, he moved into their family home. After marriage, Zoe, spoiled by her overly indulgent mother Olivia, had a free rein, causing a lot of trouble for Richard. Moreover, since Zoe started barging in every evening, she stopped cooking meals. Well, considering how much steak they ate in the evenings, it was expected. After 2 years of such a lifestyle,
Get out!
Robert, infuriated, shouted at Olivia and Zoe. I felt a sense of relief when I heard this story from Richard. Matthew had decided to let Olivia and Zoe move in with us after hearing they might be kicked out. Since they would only bring minimal luggage, the lack of furniture and appliances would be problematic. Interestingly, Matthew's supposed business trip was actually a visit to Robert, pleading for forgiveness for the two. But since Robert refused, Matthew ended up helping them pack their things. When I told Matthew everything I learned from Richard,
What a cunning wife!
I faintly heard from the other end of the phone. Apparently, Olivia was eavesdropping behind Matthew.
Mia, what will you do about this? We can't live in a place with nothing.
How could you secretly contact my husband? What a terrible woman you are.
Zoe was there too. Oh, you all seem troubled. By the way, I also asked Richard to beg Robert for forgiveness. He said if they reflect on their actions overnight, they can return home tomorrow morning.
Really?
Zoe and Olivia seemed delighted, celebrating together.
Mia, I take back what I said earlier. You're not so bad after all.
Matthew sounded disappointed, having brought them home for nothing.
Well, it's good for the two of them, but what about me? Can't you at least bring back the appliances?
Oh, by the way, while clearing out everything, I also arranged to sell the house, so please leave soon.
Hey!
Matthew's voice rose in disbelief.
I'm your husband. How can you treat me like this?
Oh, weren't you trying to kick me, your wife, out? That's pretty terrible, too. Matthew fell silent, unable to respond. I added, Oh, right. Your things are still in the house. Check the small desk you use as a study. The divorce papers are in the drawer. I filled out my part. Just sign yours. I heard Matthew's footsteps heading to the back room. Opening the drawer, he muttered,
These are divorce papers.
Yes, just fill out your part and send them in, please.
Don't be ridiculous. Why should I have to divorce?
You wanted me to leave, right? That's the same as divorcing. Matthew must not have expected his actions to backfire this way. I thought he was silent, but then I heard crying. In a voice mixed with tears, he pleaded,
Please, I was wrong. I'll treasure you from now on. Could you reconsider? I'm begging you, believe me.
Matthew pleaded, but I couldn't forgive his misdeeds of prioritizing his relatives over me and trying to kick me out. It would have been fine to accept Olivia and Zoe being kicked out of their home, but he should have consulted me. How can I trust a husband who neglected me and planned to take in his mother and sister? So his apologies now won't change my decision. The next morning, Zoe called.
Mia, you liar. When we got home, Dad and Richard were gone and the house was sold.
Zoe sounded furious, but I remained calm and unbothered. I didn't lie. I did say you could return, but I never said Dad or Richard would be waiting for you.
Damn it, we were tricked.
I heard Zoe and Olivia complaining in the background. Then Olivia noticed an anonymous envelope in the mailbox, opened it, and cried out loud. It contained a letter from Robert to Olivia and Zoe, along with divorce papers signed only by Robert and Richard. I already knew the contents from Robert. Robert had grown tired of Olivia's stubborn and selfish behavior and had been considering moving into a senior facility. This incident solidified his decision to sell the house and move. Richard also seemed to be returning to his family home in Boston to divorce the pampered Zoe.
Mia, do something. We'll have nowhere to live.
It's not my problem. Why not apologize to Richard and ask for forgiveness? I suggested, but Zoe's pride wouldn't allow her to apologize. She started sobbing quietly. Olivia trying to console her.
Poor thing,
she said. Then she grabbed the phone and yelled,
This wicked wife, inhuman!
Though startled by her scream, I remained calm and delivered my final words. Okay, take care. Goodbye. I heard a voice from the other end.
Wait a minute!
But I hung up without concern. I was done being dragged into their pace. Their selfish behavior caused their misfortune, yet they blamed me until the end. Soon Matthew and I will be divorced, making them strangers to me. Since then, I won't have to deal with them ever again. Matthew hesitated to file the divorce papers, so I hired a lawyer and started legal proceedings. Finally, the court proceedings ended, and I was officially divorced from Matthew. Matthew demanded half of the proceeds from the house sale, claiming it as marital property, but it was ruled not to be, and his claim was denied.
How can this be? I have nowhere to live now. How am I supposed to survive?
Matthew was outraged at the court's decision and started yelling at me, but the judge stopped him. He looked utterly defeated, but I felt no sympathy for him. If only he had shown some regret for letting Olivia and Zoe intrude daily. Our marriage ended in the worst possible way. Matthew, now also divorced from Olivia and Zoe, was looking for a new place to live. In our rural area, there were no affordable business hotels or internet cafes. A local friend told me they were seen setting up cardboard boxes for shelter in a park. Initially, Matthew reached out.
Help me.
But those messages ceased. Maybe because his mobile phone service was stopped. Eventually, I heard rumors that they finally moved into a nearby abandoned apartment on the outskirts of town. Supporting Olivia and Zoe, who had never worked, must be tough for him. Zoe, still of working age, remains unemployed, likely due to her pride. I heard that Olivia and Zoe often argue loudly, becoming a nuisance to their neighbors. Olivia, once thought to be family-oriented, now only cared for herself, seeing Zoe more as a burden in their current situation. Matthew, unhappy living with them, apparently spends a lot of time at slot parlors, likely squandering his earnings. Local friends keep me updated on their situation through messages and calls. Though their stories are no longer my concern, I can't help but feel a bit of schadenfreude. And now I live in Boston. Just before my divorce, I consulted Richard, who had returned to Boston after divorcing Zoe, about my future plans. Richard's brother owns a food company, and he offered me a job there. I stayed with Madison for a while, but eventually found my own small apartment with Richard's help. I'm incredibly grateful to Richard for his endless support. We share similar experiences, having both suffered in our marriages after meeting our spouses at the same community event, which hasn't been held for decades. Despite being away, I still care about my hometown. I worried it might become depopulated, but it seems the younger generation now uses dating apps, leading to more marriages. It's said that in my hometown, particularly because there are few opportunities to meet people nearby, many couples meet and get married through dating apps. Also, many remote workers are moving to rural areas for cheaper housing, bringing more young people to my hometown. Hearing about the revitalization of my hometown brings me joy. I'm considering moving back eventually to spend my later years in the countryside. Recently, I've started a relationship with Richard, contemplating remarriage.